What's up everybody, this is BR, and today I want to talk about the future tank meta that is going to be coming next season with the inevitable rework of Roadhog. Which, if you didn't know, yes, Roadhog is getting reworked because since he has been way too powerful and way too prevalent as a tank, and instead of just nerfing his numbers down, they're thinking about just reworking him since it'll probably be better in the long run. And of course, the meta is going to change with that as well, since most of Season 2 of Overwatch 2 has been dictated by how powerful Hog is. And for those of you out of the loop, let me give you a quick little rundown of what happened with the tank meta in Overwatch 2 for this season. Especially if you're only playing it casually or if you're playing in, in the lower ranks of competitive, you might not see this meta at full fruition, but of course, once you get to the higher tiers, you see people kind of being meta slaves to the whole tank thing because of just how powerful Roadhog is. So around the time of Season 1 ending and Season 2 beginning, Zarya got nerfed, Doomfist got buffed, and Orisa also got some buffs as well. And we also got the new tank Ramattra shortly after. Now, how did the meta change from Overwatch 1? Well, in Overwatch 1, the meta was mostly just Zarya. Zarya could stay alive for an indefinite amount of time because of just how much bubbling she can do. Not to mention of how long her charge lasted that, she could do a lot of damage and not take any in return. It almost felt impossible to get a hit in or two. So they nerfed Zarya by making her cooldown last a little bit longer, as well as her charge not lasting as long. So now tanks that didn't have a viable way to counter a Zarya, like with a shield or something, those tanks now became a lot more viable. We also saw the rise of Doomfist, and because many people were complaining that Doomfist wasn't powerful enough, of course, Blizzard did the thing of over-buffing him, and because of that, he became meta for like a week or two. Eventually, they did reel him back in a little, but I still think that he is a very good character if you know how to play him. But because of those first 2 weeks, people realized that Roadhog was actually a very, very, very good hero to counter against Doomfist. Because Roadhog could survive a lot of damage, and when he needs to, he can hook out a Doomfist when blocking, effectively ruining his survivability. They also realized that, actually, Roadhog is good against many tanks because, he can disrupt people and put them out of position and, just deal an insane amount of damage towards other tanks. Not to mention, squishies were basically screwed if you didn't have a good way to counter a Roadhog hook. Even then, the damage output by Roadhog was just so immense, and the fact that he almost seemed unkillable at times, it was insane. So now the meta shifted towards something where now you wanted somebody to be able to counter Roadhog very efficiently. And so what happened? Well, Blizzard decided, all right, we're going to rework Roadhog, but it's going to take some time. So what are we going to do? We're going to buff Orisa in order to deal with Roadhog at the moment. So now you have Orisa being as powerful as she is against Roadhog, but, at the same time also being pretty powerful in it of herself. So now you have that dichotomy. If somebody picks Roadhog, somebody's gonna go Orisa. So now what? Well, guess what? Zarya is actually pretty good against Orisa because she can beam through her little defenses and stuff and kind of outdamage her if she gets hit enough. Well, what do you have now? Now you have Zarya as a good counter against Orisa. So, okay, you go Hog, then somebody else goes Orisa, somebody else goes Zarya. Well, what now? Is Roadhog good against Zarya? Well, not really, actually. Zarya's bubbles are pretty good protection against a Roadhog, and especially once Zarya gets like that full amount of damage ramp up, she can melt plenty of squishies, and when she needs to protect herself from a Hog, who, inevitably deals a lot of damage, well, she only gets more power out of it. So what you basically have to do now is find a way to block her from beaming your squishies. Well, what now? Well, now you have Monkey. Winston is pretty good against Orisa because he has a shield and he can jump in, jump out whenever he needs to. He's not a sitting target like Roadhog. And Monkey's shield can do a lot of blocking damage against a Zarya at full charge. So while Zarya is trying to break the bubble at a very slow amount of time, guess what? The Winston is already dealing a lot of damage to her squishies. And if the Winston gets into any kind of trouble, well, guess what? He just jumps out. So now you have this counter-based meta where, you have Hog going against Orisa, going against Zarya, going against Winston, and, Roadhog is good against Winston. Well, what about the other tanks? Well, the thing is that other tanks are pretty good on their own. They don't have any good counter against them, but at the same time, they're not really strong against anybody else. But I think that the most well-rounded were Ramattra and Sigma. They have a pretty good range, they have good health, they can protect themselves with either, with shields and extra health tacticals. They're pretty well good rounders. Doomfist is also on a league of his own, but he kind of needs a lot of time and practice to get good at him in the first place, and also a little bit of team coordination, so of course he's not going to be, the most well-liked or well-used character. Diva is also good, but unfortunately she requires a lot more effort compared to all those other heroes in order to do well as team coordination, so again, she's kind of at a weird disadvantage. And then Ball and Reinhardt are just, bad. Unfortunately, they are just way too underpowered because of the way that they work. Ball can be a nuisance and can be a very good pick character, but if you're playing something like Roadhog, who has a giant blasting shotgun, and as well as picking ability against, other squishies at range, then Ball just doesn't seem like such a good team player. And Reinhardt is Reinhardt. He unfortunately doesn't have the range to compete with other tanks, and also his shield gets broken very easily by Roadhog. See, notice how Roadhog kind of dictates whether or not a character is viable this season. And there you have it. I mean, that's pretty much the meta as it is in Season 2. So what about next season? Now that we're going to have that Roadhog rework, well, now we can think about things that might happen. So, of course, immediately what we're going to get is a different Roadhog, which we don't know is going to be good or bad. So, we can just leave him out of the total equation of where the meta is going to be at. But we also have to take into account that Orisa was only Giga buffed just because of Roadhog. So what now? Well, I think Orisa is going to be reeled back in just a little. But regardless, I still think that Orisa is going to be very high tier when it comes to this next season, because she's still a very good, well-rounded character, and not to mention that her ultimate, when paired up with other ultimates, is very, very good. And because Orisa might be reeled back in, Zarya might also have another chance again back at the top of the tier list. And assuming that Roadhog isn't as powerful as he was before, Doomfist and Winston might dominate the meta as well. Also, Reinhardt might actually return back to, relevancy. Diva might actually stay at A tier, though she could be just one of those sleeper meta tanks, just like Roadhog was in Season 1. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe one of you can actually just one-trick Diva next season and prove me wrong. Also, with Roadhog no longer dominating the tank meta, I think that Ball is going to be doing very well as well. No longer limited by Roadhog's shotgun. But in my honest opinion, the tank that I think is going to be the tank to play is going to be Sigma. He does it all. He's got utility, he's got a stun, and he's also got a great ultimate. His survivability is also A-class, and he also has a very powerful primary. But honestly, who knows? Maybe this new incarnation of Roadhog is just going to be so much more powerful than he is now, and we're going to wish that he goes back to the old ways. However, only time will tell. Anyways, now I'd like to hear about your opinions. What do you think about the tank meta? How do you think it's going to be changing by next season? Make sure to tell me down in the comment section down below. If you found this video interesting, like it if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it. If you'd like to see more content just like this, make sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, I do have a Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later.